Hi, how's it going? This is Resident of Collinwood for YouTube, here to do a read-along of To Benight and Beguile, Book 6, Chapter 8, A Stirring in the Secret Room. Here we go. Let's see. The summer sky was as blue as a sapphire gem, with clouds swirling in white plumes overhead. Eve stood at the front steps of the entrance to Terramore House, her face frozen in shock, seeing Jacqueline Gray arm in arm with Jonathan Devaney as they walked off in the distance into the lush grounds of the garden. Aaron Hampstead, the Lord family driver, noticed Evie's reaction, and when he turned his head to where Evie's eyes were looking, no one was there. "Are you okay, miss?" he asked. She shook herself out of the strange trance and said she was. She offered her own arm. Hampstead took it and helped her up the long stairs that led to the front door of the mansion. In the garden, Jacqueline sensed Evie's presence. Her mind flashes of memories of the grave Evie was buried in and how Jacqueline would taunt Evie from above ground, and flashes of Evie in the hospital before she supposedly died, being poisoned by Jacqueline, who shapeshifted into a nurse. As the memories flushed into the witch's mind, Jacqueline suddenly snapped her body back and stared at the mansion behind her. "What is it?" Jonathan asked. I'd like to go back in," she said mysteriously. "What? Why? Just a moment ago you said you wanted to be alone out in the garden." "Let's go back. Is that okay?" "I think it's getting a little chilly," Jacqueline said, lying. Jonathan furrowed his brow, unsure of Jacqueline's reasoning, but obliged, and the two quickly returned. As the newly married couple entered from the garden side entrance, Jonathan took himself into the smoking room, and Jacqueline quickly snuck off toward the foyer, where she knew she'd find Evie entering the mansion. She knew she had to intercept Evie before they made their first encounter in front of the family. Jacqueline rushed down a dimly lit, windowless corridor, her dress swooshing and swaying in the quick pace she kept. Her heart was beating faster and faster, and when she turned into the high ceilinged foyer, there was Evie Jordan Lord, the woman she buried alive, standing there with her hands across the front of her dress, clasped, clearly awaiting Jacqueline. "Evie," Jacqueline said softly, "I had a feeling you'd be the first one to greet me. What the hell are you doing here?" Evie asked, her voice simmering with fury. Jacqueline smirked wickedly and slowly got closer to Evie. "We're in-laws now, Evangeline. I say you can call me Auntie Jackie, but when even I wouldn't keep a straight face with that one." Evie furrowed her brow, confused, but when Jacqueline lifted her hand to show her wedding ring, "What have you done?" Jacqueline smirked again. "I've solidified my survival, first of all, and secondly, I found love with Jonathan." "No," Evie said. You're married to Sebastian's uncle. How? Why could you marry you?" Um, Obviously, Evie, he loves me and I love him. At first, Evie was shocked, but then the wheels started turning. "They don't know what you are, do they? Is it you? Is it you who convinced the newspaper to print that terrible lie about Sebastian, saying he was responsible for the death of those fishermen? Why would you do that? How could you do that? Sebastian would never, ever hurt someone." "Wouldn't he? He's certainly done it in the past," Jacqueline noted, but quickly added, "But contrary to what you might think of me, I would never, ever reveal his secret like that. Ever. You should be ashamed of yourself being here like this, especially after what you did to me," Evie scolded. "I should expose you for the creature you are." "I wouldn't do that if I were you, my love. The very second you speak a word of what I am, they'll throw you back in the back of a van, back up to Churchill Green so fast your head will spin. I will expose you, Evie stabbed back. You can't, Jacqueline replied, and you won't. Evie knew Jacqueline was right. The slightest hint of a mental break, and Jacob's dream of sending Evie off forever would be secured. When the Lords find out about you, they'll be hell to pay, Evie snarled. I don't blame you, Evie, Jacqueline began. I know what I did was heinous, but I would never ever tell anyone about what Sebastian is. He's sacred to me. Two of us had something special. It was true love. You don't know what true love is, Jacqueline. You manipulate and twist things and lie. That's not love. It's because of you that I lost my child. I lost Sebastian. You're the cause of this. Your greed and obsession did all of this. And for what? What did you gain for trying to kill me and have Sebastian all to yourself? Another man? You've already passed up Sebastian for Jonathan? Jacqueline gasped. Is that what you think I did? Passed up Sebastian? I had to marry Jonathan. It was the only way I could be sure I was protected while I searched for the man I truly loved, Jacqueline explained. Evie rolled her eyes. Oh, please. You don't need protection from the Lords. You have powers. Why not use them and protect yourself like you did on me? Jacqueline sighed. That's not how things work in the coven I belong to. As much as I hate to admit it, we do have rules. Evie, tell me, where is he, Evie? Where is Sebastian? You'll tell me where he is, won't you? You have to. He and I truly belong together. You don't deserve him. You're cruel. You're evil. For God's sakes, you buried me alive and almost had my brother blamed for my death in the process. You just want to destroy. How can a person like you know what love is? You don't deserve love, Jacqueline. You used Sebastian, and when it was clear he was still in love with me, you did all you could to keep him. He hates you. He wants nothing to do with you, Evie said. Jacqueline slowly walked closer to Evie. Step by step, the pounding of her heart slowed. She was ready to snap Evie's neck for what she said. If Evie wanted to see destruction, Jacqueline would show her with her own life. I could kill you right here, right now, and no one would ever know I did it. No one here cares for you, Evie, not a single person. So why don't you save your own life and tell me where Sebastian is right now? Your own free will, and I won't have to hurt you or Gabriel. The mention of her son's name sent a sharp pain down Evie's spine. She perked up. She would never allow anyone else to get close to her son enough to threaten him. Instead of backing away from the slowly approaching of Jacqueline, Evie moved forward and lifted her chin and stared Jacqueline down. Touch even a single hair on my son, and I will burn you to the ground, so that your body becomes a smoldering pile of pathetic ashes. Jacqueline chuckled. Please, this is no time for jokes. Listen to me, you bitch. I'm promising you that I'll expose you. Everyone will see what you are, and I won't have to do it myself. Just look how quickly this town believes Sebastian is some kind of hungry beast. This is feeding that is feeding on fishermen at the docks. I can just as easily tell the world of a sorceress now in the house of the Lord being just as equally responsible for all the whores in this island has been for generations, and you'll be tied to a stake and burned so fast you'll never even smell the smoke before you'll die. Jacqueline paused before replying, realizing Evie was right. The villagers did have a quick tendency to jump to rumor and speculation as truth, and seek answers later. She'd seen it with her own two eyes when she witnessed half of the village rush to the lighthouse, when Rebecca almost dropped Gabriel into the sea when Caspian controlled the old woman's mind. I just want to know where Sebastian is. If you tell me, I'll leave. I'll vanish, and he and I will leave forever. That's what you want, isn't it? To be free of me and him? Two forces of supernatural matter that only deserve each other, Jacqueline repeated. I will never tell you. Jacqueline's frustrations grew, and again she twisted her way around, threatening Gabriel. It would be a shame for Gabriel to lose more than his hearing. Eve's eyes narrowed once again. Which you touch my son, I'll tell everyone within earshot what you are, what you've done. Evie then paused and stepped closer to her enemy, looked her deep in her chestnut brown eyes. Then I will destroy Sebastian where he is. He'll be gone forever, and then you'll never have him. If I find one hair on Gabriel's head askew, your precious Sebastian is dead. Jacqueline saw the seriousness in Evie's eyes. She believed it was a bluff, but Evie did not budge. They were at an impasse. Jacqueline knew Evie had no fear of her and would destroy Sebastian if she threatened her any more. And Evie knew no one would believe her if she said Jacqueline was a witch who buried her alive. As they as the two enemies stared each other down for seconds that seemed like hours, a voice came from above. "What is this?" Celeste said, coming down the winding staircase with Caroline carrying Gabriel. Evie and Jacqueline shot each other looks, almost as if they were planning a game of chicken. Who'd be the first to speak? Who'd be the first to set the story of who they were to each other and their own crooked history? Jacqueline took the reins as she had more to lose. "I just introduced myself to Evangeline and welcomed her back again." Celeste looked at Evie, smiled politely, signaling her approval. "Oh," Celeste replied skeptically, "but I do sense tension." "Not at all," Jacqueline replied. "Anyway, I should let you reconnect, Evie. It was a pleasure." She walked off the stairs, turning one last time to watch Evie quickly move on her baby boy in Cora's arms. Evie ignored Jacqueline's turn toward her on the staircase. Cora easily and happily handed off Gabriel to his mother. "Oh, I've missed you, my little boy. I've missed these cheeks, these little pink lips, this nose that I could eat up. Mama has missed you so much," Evie said, kissing her 11-month-old baby over and over again. "It makes me so happy to see him this way," Celeste said. "He loves you." Evie looked up from the baby towards her old best friend, almost annoyed. "I'm his mother, Celeste. Of course he loves me." "Well, it makes me happy to see you happy," Celeste replied, adjusting her comment. He's certainly very smitten," Cora added. "This is Caroline Taylor, Evie. She's been hired to help Gabriel learn the language of sign over the months. She's slowly been able to teach him little signs for us to know what he wants. He's learned so much. He's a very smart boy, and I'm so pleased with his quick study. In a few years, he'll be fully communicative with all of us. He's really a miracle," Cora explained. "You're the miracle," Evie told her. "I can't thank you enough. I worried for so long after we discovered he couldn't hear about how he'd grow. This is amazing. Truly amazing. I don't know how to repay you." Cora's heart warmed, seeing Evie's true and honest reaction toward her. She could sense there was a mother who adored her son with every inch of her body, every inch of her soul. She loved him to no end, and the idea that Cora was a part of something that was putting the baby's father in a terrible light, that included murder, made her sick to her stomach. The truth was, she had no idea what Evie saw when she was freed from her grave. Was it Sebastian? Was it a hallucination? No one knew. But the twisting of the story into something so disgusting by Baxter, thanks to Cora's influence, made her whole warming heart turn black. I'm only doing what Mr. and Mrs. Lord pay me to do," Cora replied honestly. He realized this too, and turned to Celeste, who stood there hoping for some sign of their old friendship despite the terrible things she had done to Evie. "Yes," Evie said. "Thank you, Celeste." "It's the least I could do," Celeste smiled. with watery eyes. What do we do about the papers? The story has to stop, Jacob. Has to stop Baxter from printing any more lies about Sebastian, Evie said quickly, returning to the actual reason she was at Caramel. So you've read them already too, Celeste replied. We're just as upset, Evie. Trust me, Jacob, as all the editors at the Globe trying to get Murphy to retract what he's written. They're also very sorry that they printed it. They had no idea the story would have such an effect. Celeste answered, how could they not? They're saying Sebastian is alive and a killer. He's neither, Evie answered. He's not who saved you from the grave, Celeste asked, reminding Evie of what she had said to Dr. Ward of how she escaped. Evie, for her part, knew that if she wanted to keep Sebastian's true whereabouts safe from anyone, she wanted to who wanted to harm him and try to kill him for what he was, specifically Jacob Lord, she had to play along for the idea that it was all something she imagined, and that Sebastian has still died in the explosion at Lockwood Thicket. He's dead, Evie said. That's what the Globe needs to print. We're doing what we can, Celeste replied, as Cora looked, still feeling sick for her part in it all. Then, as the three women stood there in the foyer discussing the salacious article about the deaths, Gabriel, the 11-month-old child of Sebastian and Evie, began to use his little fingers in a way that made Cora yelp with glee. Oh, look, look, Cora screeched. He's signing. What is he signing? Celeste asked. Evie looked at Gabriel, who was smiling ear to ear as he locked eyes with his mother and signed his word, Mama. Evie did not know sign language, but something told her what Gabriel was saying. It was her son. She sensed it, almost as if it was some kind of telepathic connection entered her heart, be his little signs, and she said Mama to Cora's surprise. That's right, Cora laughed. He's telling you Mama. It's the first time he's used his signs without being prompted by me. It's basically his first words. Celeste gasped as happy tears rolled down her face. Evie squeezed her little baby close to her chest and kissed him over and over. Cora looked at the little family and realized she had to stop Baxter from exposing anything else. She could no longer be a part of what he was trying to do. Gabriel, the little boy she fell in love with, deserved better. So Cora, who has been Gabriel's teacher for a while, loves Gabriel very much. She cares for him like it's her son too. So we'll see what happens. We'll see. We'll see. Later that afternoon, inside Constable Gregory Rain's apartment in town, Aurora packed a suitcase. She had decided now that Evie was safe and sound in her own home on the beach that she'd move there to be with her. The loneliness her daughter would face could be unbearable. Gregory, however, was not happy with Aurora's decision, but did not push her to stay. Having Aurora around in the apartment made things too close for comfort, knowing that he was hiding Ashia in the secret room behind his closet. Ashia was a risk to him. Gregory wanted the secret of how they lied to Aurora about her baby's death and where the child was to remain the way it was. His fear Aurora's connection to the baby's father, Caspian, would rear its ugly head, and she'd fall back in love with him, drove him to cross the barrier of irrationality that he could now never cross back. The handsome and strong constable stood in his bedroom doorway and watched Aurora back as she explained how Evie needed her. His heart broke knowing he wouldn't wake up to her beautiful face every day, but this was better. Having Aurora out of the apartment would free him up to deal with Ashia once and for all. It's not like we won't see each other all the time, Aurora said as she folded the scarves. into her suitcase, and Washport isn't New York City. I can be anywhere you are in 2 minutes flat, she smiled. It's not the same, Gregory said, pouting like a puppy, with a sly grin on his face. Aurora smiled and walked over to him and kissed his lips. She hadn't felt this kind of love in many, many years. Since her husband Richard, Gregory's affections for her were so strong that Aurora felt as if she could sense them in the air. His vibrations of love were that strong. He loved her despite knowing what she and Richard did at the end of his life. He loved her despite the strange affair with Caspian. It was unconditional love that Aurora cherished so much, and one that she never expected at her age. But being with Evie was even more important than living with Gregory. No, I know you have to be there with her. I'm only sorry that we can't all be together, Gregory mentioned. I'm happy Rebecca gave her this place, something of her own. In fact, I was actually very shocked. Rebecca seems to be turning a new leaf. Nick's going to be with us too, Aurora said, going back to her packing. Nick, tied up in the darkened secret room, Ashia perked up at Nick's name being mentioned. Aurora sighed. Apparently, Ashia left town out of nowhere. He's broken up about it. That's awful, Gregory said, hoping Ashia didn't hear them from behind the walls. I'm sure everything is fine now. Well, I don't know. Nick mentioned there was some kind of problem with her family that she'd had to rush off back home, but she didn't even wait for him to come home from the hospital to tell him, or worse, she didn't notify the hospital. She just up and left, Aurora explained. In the room, Ashia saw this as a break. She struggled on the bed, her hands pulling, yanking the restraints so they'd move the brass posts they were tied to, bang up against the wall. She yanked the post back once, twice, 3 times. Aurora stopped mid-sentence and looked toward the closet. What was that? She asked slowly, walking toward the closet. Gregory began before a knock on the front door saved the day. Shaking her head confused, Aurora went to answer him. That'll be Nick. She heard Nick's name again and yanked on the restraints. Finding himself alone in the room, Gregory quickly stepped into the closet, went over to the panel hidden in the back, and whispered to Ashia, You need to stop this. Trust me, you do not want anyone to find you. If they do, I do not know what I'll do, Ashia. I'm in a very panicked state. Anything can happen. Ashia knew a threat when she heard it. She lowered her wrist and whimpered in defeat. When Aurora and Nick re-entered the bedroom, Gregory was standing by the bed, smiling. Those two, and this one, Aurora told her son Nick. Dr. Jordan, Gregory greeted, knowing what he knew of Gregory baby swap in secret. Nick couldn't stand the sight of Gregory, but smiled. Nick's voice hit Ashia's ears like a symphony. She wanted him to know she didn't abandon him. She wanted to know she loved him, and that she was sorry for her part in what happened with his little sibling. She had to make a decision, try and alert Nick and risk his and Aurora's life, or sit quietly and allow him to continue to believe she'd left him. She yanked her wrists again, pulling the bed post back and forth so they'd bang up against the wall. Did you find out what that was? Aurora asked, remembering she was investigating the sound before Nick knocked the door. Nick dropped his mother's suitcase and went over to the opposite wall, listening to his ear against the wall. What is that? He wondered too. It's just all of a sudden started happening. It sounds like I can't peg it like a pipe. Or Aurora said, pipes that probably, what is it, these old buildings in town have very old pipes? I run through them. They're not very good, to be honest. I could have someone come look at them, Gregory said. No, it's not pipes. Listen, Nick noted. That sounds like almost like they're in a cadence, not random. It's louder, more deliberate than pipes. What could it be? If she had kept changing the amount of tapping, she was craning so they could tell someone, not something, was making a sound. A person was doing it. Keep listening, Nick. Keep listening. The gagged as she had thought to herself. Nick kept checking the walls. He listened closely, ran his ear along the wall, and finally was coming up to the closet aside of the bedroom, where the sound was getting stronger. It's coming from here for sure, Greg, Nick said. I think so too, Aurora said. It could just be coming from downstairs in the station, Gregory tried to cover. No, it's definitely the walls, Aurora noted. I hear movement, Nick said, as if she had thrusted her tied body back and forth on the brass bed behind the closet walls. Gregory began to panic. Mother and son now were inches away from going into the closet to investigate. Sound further. Gregory's stomach balled up. He reached for his gun that was attached to his strong thigh. He pulled it out of his holster, walked slowly behind Nick and Aurora, and waited for the moment they found the secret panel. And then he'd do something he did not want to do. He was desperate. He loved Aurora to no end. He wanted to protect her life of Caspian, and his whole reasoning from taking a child from her and was to give her a new lease on life, away from any connection to what Caspian did to her. The child was a scar of that mistake, the scar that he would remind of her every day that Caspian tricked her into bed and impregnated her. Gregory's mind spun out into these thoughts of justifying what he did to Aurora, to the baby, because she and now possibly having to kill Nick and Aurora to protect his crime. Secrets were killing him, and now they'd kill two more people, all because he was too afraid the strain and symbolism the child Aurora Caspian conceived would affect Aurora's love for him. Something she had never expressed, something she had never said out loud, that Gregory felt would happen if the child stayed with her. Then Gregory tried to reach Aurora one more time and loudly said, I don't want the two of you to get hurt now. She had got the hint and stopped. Nick and Aurora turned back to Gregory, who quickly hid his gun behind him. Hurt? Why would we get hurt? Nick said, slightly annoyed at Gregory being so close to him. Are you all right, honey? Aurora asked, seeing Gregory's old facial expression. You look pale. Nick turned back to the closet. He stopped. It stopped. Told you, just pipes. I'll have someone look into it. It's probably coming from the police office downstairs anyway. But it sounded like someone was banging, Nick began before Gregory jumped in. It was the pipe, Nicholas. There is nothing more. Nick and Aurora stared at him. The outburst of the ordinary and very out of his character, Aurora grabbed Gregory's hand. All right, no need to jump down anyone's throat, Nick. It's pipes, Aurora said, attempting to cool the room. Nick lifted a brow, unable to ignore Gregory's odd outburst. Aurora had never seen this side of her partner, and she wasn't sure of what was truly going on in his mind. What's more, the rigid way Nicholas was having around Gregory bothered her too. It was the first time the two men in her life had been this adversary towards each other. We should go, Nick said coldly. The cab is waiting. Right, Aurora said, smiling. She walked over to Gregory and hugged him tight. I want to make sure when Evie gets home, the house is straightened up and many things aren't all over the place, she joked. Of course, Gregory replied, kissing her. Give Evie my love. Nick winced. He hated Gregory for what he and she had done to his mother and his little baby half-sibling, but despite overhearing their confession, he had yet found a way to prove their guilt and expose them to the stress of having to hide what he knew was killing him. Nick and Gregory could tell something was going on. Yeah, well, with his pseudo stepson. I heard about the Shia mate. Gregory said, hoping to again cool the tensions in the room. Don't worry, she'll be okay, Gregory said. Nick furrowed his brow. She's with her family. Why wouldn't she be okay? Gregory smiled. Well, whatever happened with her family will be all right, is what I mean. Nick narrowed his eyes suspiciously. Right. As Aurora collected the last of her things, and Nick carried them down to an awaiting cab, Aurora, seeing Gregory puppy dog face returning, laughed and hugged him. I'll stop, she teased. I'm not too far. Once they kissed goodbye, Gregory locked the front door, and went back into the room, slid into the closet, and peeled the hidden door of the secret room behind his closet, where he found a sweaty, stressed Gad Ashia Hoffman. You're not playing by the rules, he snarled. What you did could have cost us everything. Do you understand everything? He walked over to her and looked down. He felt awful for his actions, but felt it was the only way to make sure his secrets was kept secret. His relationship with Aurora remained intact, with no signs of the child that could bring back so many painful memories to the woman he loved. What am I going to do with you? He asked, kneeling down so that he and the Shia were now eye to eye. Having you here seems to be more a bother than I bargained for. But now that Aurora is staying at the beach house, that won't be a problem, will it? Gregory added, striking fear in Ashia as the hope of being found startled to fade. But you know as well as I do that you can't stay here forever now, can you, Doctor? What are we going to do about that, huh? Where are we going to put you that everything would work so hard to stays that way? I want in the shadows. What do you think? She began to try to speak, but was gagged. Gregory leaned down, putting his ear close to hers lips, but no words escaped that made any sense. He signed and asked if she wanted the gag to be released. She nodded careful. Now, he said, showing one hand with his gun. He removed the gag, and she coughed two deep breaths and stretched the sore muscles around her dry lips. He reached over to a side table, still one hand on his gun, and poured her water and helped her drink. You can just let me go, she said softly through her gulps of water, so that you can expose what we did and Aurora find her way back to Caspian. I can't do that, Ashia. You know as well as I do that I can't. Besides, once this is out in the open, what do you think will happen to you? We'll both be in prison somewhere in Bangor. You lied to me and made me arrest Andrew Kim for attempted murder. I covered for you. You covered for me. If I am exposed, you are exposed. And it's curtains for the both of us. I can't risk that. Murder explained again. It's the right thing to do, Gregory. Maybe I need to pay for what I did to Andrew. Gregory smirked. Nice try. but I but you and I both know that he was a piece of garbage and deserved what he got for what he did to your father. Even though your father was a monster, he did not deserve Kim's cruelty. An eye for an eye, Gregory replied. But none of it's right. I had no right to do that to Andrew, just as he had no right to kill my father the way he did. And Gregory, you had no right to take Aurora and Caspian's child. It was a mistake. I made a mistake helping But we can fix this, she exclaimed. Gregory did not like what he was hearing. His plot was too far gone. He could no longer go back. He replaced her gag, and she struggled again into bed. I'll return later with food. But don't get too comfortable, Dr. Hoffman. Your time in this hole is limited. You've shown you cannot be trusted, and I truly cannot have you here above the police station making noise. I'll be back with your final meal. The words final meal sent a pain down her body that felt she was being split in two. The overwhelming stress of the entire situation, she prayed would kill her before he could. He slid the secret door back over the closet passage into the room and replaced the two French doors that made up the closet and stared at his reflection in the small squares of glass. Who was he? What was he doing? He barely knew himself. Then a surge of rage filled his body. He threw his fist through the square of glass in the closet French door that held his face. The blood oozed from his knuckles, and Ashia could sense the darkness coming. Her time was truly limited now. Elsewhere in the village, Welsh Portians were preparing for the night to come and all its festivities. The full moon celebration was a fun and exciting event. The whole town would come out at dusk. I've seen Jaws. It's like go in the water, have a good time. This is going to be a massacre. That's what that is. That's what this chapter is setting up for, which is really nice. I'd like to think so. I could be wrong. It was the first full moon of the season, a sign of the summer to come. A sign of excitement and respite. City officials were carefully decorating Village Park in the town square, lifting long string of new electric lights that made dotted border floating above, linked by tall iron gas lamps. It could be dimly lit on the night of the full moon. Fathers of their young children were already scouting spots on the park lawn to place their long-range telescope to the view of the full face of the moon. Towards Village Hall, Rebecca and Caspian were ruminating the square, making their way to the records apartment so that Caspian could begin to search of who he was and before his horrible demonic possession. This was a chance for him to redeem himself in the eyes of the Lord family, who already saw him as some kind of monster for the terrible evil he inflicted on family when he was under a demon's spell. All the while, Rebecca showed a support front for her new husband, but instead of she feared what they'd find. Who was the man she married? Who was he really? And when he discovered his life before, would he want to remain with her? Her heart told her he would, but her mind fell victim to the terrible thoughts of reality, realizing there was a silver chance he might find out he had a whole different family out there somewhere. Not just siblings or cousins, but perhaps a wife and even children. As the two made their way up the very long stretch of path going up towards Village Hall, a chance encounter occurred. It was Rebecca's old and estranged friend Laurel and her granddaughter Samantha in her baby carriage, with large white wheels and a black cover. Seeing Rebecca, Laurel froze in place, a face she hadn't had in a very long time. Laurel's mind quickly flashed to her husband, Dr. Peter Ward, encouraging such an encounter to bury the hatchet. Only Laurel pitched Rebecca, burying the hatchet in her back. Picture, yeah. Rebecca sighed, an awkward pause in her steps gave Caspian a hint. Is everything all right, he wondered. Laurel, Rebecca said loudly as Laurel then approached. Rebecca, what a wonderful surprise to see you. I'm so happy to hear you're home, and of course of your marriage, Laurel began. Mr. Castor, lovely to meet you. Likewise, Caspian said slowly, bowing his head and tipping his hat. Thank you, Rebecca replied. What brings you to town? Well, Laurel said, motioning to the event setup. We were thinking of coming back later in the evening. Not too late, of course, with everything going on with those fishermen. But Samantha's would probably enjoy a little summer night air in the moon. Yes, the fishermen, Rebecca said, her discomfort around the subject considering the papers were saying her own grandson Sebastian was responsible for the murders. Oh, no, no, I don't mean anything by that at all. Not, not the way implying that, oh, Rebecca, I can't do this anymore. Do what? Caspian wondered. As Rebecca stood there, the flashes came to her of the moment the relationship between Laurel, once a trusted employee and best friend, imploded. The night of Vivi's birth and death, and how Laurel brought the village which Eliza Good to bring the child back, only to have the spell not work and leave Rebecca barren. All that pain, all that heartache and misery of losing a child, then realizing you could not have any more, Laurel, to flash to that day, a day that she never forgave herself for, a day that she would live in her heart like heavy scar tissue that would never heal. We have a complicated history, that's all, Rebecca replied. We can easily say it, Laurel added. I did something that changed Rebecca's life forever. I fully take responsibility for that. I always have. Rebecca stayed stone faced, but inside she wanted to let it all go. It all passed over her. She felt like she had found a new lease on her life now that she was with Caspian. But her old ghost haunted her, and Laurel was a reminder of them. Breaking the awkward silence, Caspian interjected. We've all gone through things in our lives that should somehow find ways of moving that we should somehow find ways of moving past. I certainly know that I have those. In the recent past, that's actually why we came down here today. I'm searching for my own history. Is that so? Laurel asked, replied for the new topic. Well, I wish you both of you, the best of luck. Laurel then began to push the stroller past Rebecca. As Laurel got close, grabbed her old friend's arm and looked into the baby carriage to see almost a precious 2-year-old baby girl she had seen since her own Vivius was born. Rebecca crouched down and reached into the carriage. Laurel's heart felt as if she was going to stop. Rebecca touched the baby's hand, and Samantha squeezed it and giggled. She's stunning, Rebecca said. She really is, Caspian, a beautiful child, Rebecca added. Laurel gulped. She looks so much like my son sometimes. When I hear her giggle, it reminds me of him at her age. Rebecca then remembered hearing about Laurel's and Peter's loss. Samantha's parents both died in an accident when she was just a few months old. Rebecca heart suddenly thawed. There were two mothers, two grandmothers, two old friends who had lost so much in their lives. Baby looked up and reached for Rebecca's hand again. You know, Father Ryan has scheduled to be her to be baptized sometime after the full moon events. I know this is literally out of nowhere. I can't even begin to wonder why I'm going to say this, but Rebecca, would you like to be her godmother? As soon as she said the words, Laurel realized she had lost her mind. Why on earth would she have said that? It made no sense. The two had barely spoken in a decade or more, and on their first encounter, she asked her to be the godmother to her granddaughter. It was ludicrous, but there it was, there in the open, and Laurel felt like a foolish girl hoping her old friend would like her again. Rebecca seemed touched. She turned to Laurel and said, uncivil word, yes, yes, Laurel shot back, stunned. I think that would be build a new bridge between us, Laurel, and I would be honored. Laurel smiled from ear to ear, and she contacted her soon with details of the very last baptism and went on her way as a claim. Caspian turned to his wife and smiled. Well now, if the summer didn't melt the winter snow, your happy smile would. Rebecca smirked back. I'm doing it for Vivi. She was baptized on the day of her death. This will be sort of a way to honor her. Samantha deserves a good godmother. I think I can be that. Of course, Caspian smiled as he looped his arm so that Rebecca could link hers, and they went up to the marble staircase of village hall to search for records on who Caspian really was. In a small office toward the back of the village hall, Lear Lockwood signed off on paperwork as the lawyer for his new client, Lucas Morrill. Lucas had come to America from the Azores Island with Matthew and sought help with his citizenship via Lord's help. Sorry, my cat jumped on me. It was funny. The two had gotten to know each other, and Lear was happy to help in Lucas's hopes and his own American dream. I have to tell you, this is going to be the happiest event in my life, Lucas gleamed in his red leather chair in front of Lear. Well, it's not every day someone can start a new life. Like in America. Here, with hard work, anyone can be anything. I hope once and for all this is done with, you'll find what you're looking for, Lear said, referring to the lengthy paperwork of citizenship. I hope so too. I'm new in town too. Well, sort of new. I grew up here, but left as a teenager after my father died, Lear added. After turning to Lucas, who noted Lear suddenly had blushing cheeks. Would it strange if I asked you if you'd like to maybe have a drink? At the siren, Lear asked. Lucas felt his heart skip a beat. There was something about Lear that he knew was very alluring, and Lear felt the same pull from Lucas. They knew almost instinctively that they had something in common, something inside of them that only they could understand and feel. This was a spark that Lear felt warm his heart, and one that Lucas had not felt in a very long time. I would be happy to do that, Lucas said in charming Portuguese accent. Lear then stood up and told him he'd be in touch with him when came time for the court appointments to go in front of the magistrate for Lucas' citizenship hearing. There were formalities that had to be ironed out. Lear knew that the small number of new Americans in Maine meant Lucas was most likely at the head of the line. As Lear opened the door with his name edgily painted on the glass, Lucas once again thanked him and reminded him of having a drink some time at the siren. Lear's eyes caught his Aunt Rebecca, and Cassian slowly walking down the hallway toward him. He held his breath. This was a run, and he did not expect. Rebecca and Lear had yet to speak thoroughly since she returned from Churchill Green. You in trouble, dude. She discovered he had helped Jacob attempt to take family company. You really in trouble. From her. Nephew, what a fine place you have, Caspian. It seemed today is the day everyone from my past comes to me at Village Hall. You remember my brother's youngest son, Lear? Rebecca said with a slight tease that seemed Lear look as pale as a ghost. Aunt Rebecca, hello, Lear repeated as Caspian greeted him with a silent head nod. This is your auntie, Lucas asked happily. Your nephew is so kind, ma'am. He's helping me so much. You should be proud. Thank you, Lucas, Lear showing sudden discomfort around Rebecca. I'll see you soon, Lear added. Lucas felt a bit pushed away, but noted and nodded and gave Rebecca Caspian a quick bow of his head. I am very proud of you, Rebecca said, even though you helped me off from what I worked almost all my life on. Rebecca Cassian said, a voice with slight tone of warning. It's true, though he knows it. We all know it. No hard feelings. How can throw my only nephew overboard when he was only doing what he thought was right? Albert, very, very misguided, albeit so. I mean to join forces with my greedy son. Rebecca's sarcasm was palpable. And Rebecca, you know that while you were away, Jacob was in charge of all the arms of LPH, including the legal team, of which I am a part of. I had to do what he wanted. It's what the position of this family solicitor is for. Make sure the best is done for the family business. If something should happen to someone else, it's what Uncle Albert stipulated in his will. Lear said, forgetting he was very happy to help lock Rebecca away. Yes. Well, that's all good in theory, but you were quickly to jump on Jacob's actions. I would have appreciated at least a little question of his motives. But no matter, I also read my late husband's will to the very creases of the folds of the paper. All is well now, Shirtplug. Then we should be off, Caspian said, hoping this would be the very last of their run-ins and they could begin the search for his past. All is well, Lear said with a raised eyebrow. All is well with you're the one whose life is it benefit, isn't that right? Rebecca cocked her head on one side. What? All is well. When when you left my father in ruins, you took everything grandfather Lockwood had, somehow. You left him with nothing. You forced him to do things for money, though that no one would ever think of it. You left him destitute, yet because as long as all was well for you, when you thought nothing more of the rest of the family. Is that what you think happened? She asked, truly surprised. Is that what happened? I was there. I remember, Lear said now, leaning on his office door frame. Lear, you were a child. You could possibly know very problematic details of what happened between my brother and I. Your father had a very way of putting himself in ruins, and my father needed to preserve our fortune. In a way, made sure funds were safe for the future generations, specifically you and your sister. That's a lie, Lear Shopek. You took everything from him. Everything. Lear, that is not true. When my sister vanished, that's when it all happened. You know it, and I know it. That's when you deceived that you had to take control of everything, and it left my father and mother and myself in an even worse place financially, and we had nothing. We lost my sister to some madman in our house and our money, and all of it when you decided that my father wasn't good enough. That's what happened. Lear explained, all the while Rebecca shaking her head in disagreement. No, Lear, that's not what happened. Your baby sister disappeared and your father lost her of whatever happened. I didn't do anything. I was there to support, but I began to see he was spiraling. I had to step in then. How do you think you got to law school? The money I saved from your father's part of the inheritance is what you got. You there. Beckerfield. No, Lear said, his face softening. Yes, dear. That's not how my father explained it. Perhaps he was too embarrassed, son, Caspian interjected. Men, when faced with something to explain to their children that put them in a bad light, oftentimes hide things and place blame on others. He added, looking to Rebecca while saying those word others. I don't know. It's not what I was told, Lear repeated. Painful past Lear dealt with had always been explained to him in a way that shaded Rebecca in the darkest of light. There was a time when Lear's father began to spiral out of control with his finance and inheritance. That part of it, that part was true. It was a dark time in the Lockwood family history. It was a chapter in their lives that all of them tried to forget because of the painful residue that lingered on them like a single gray storm cloud that would never vanish, not even in the brightest of summer days. Lear's father one day took his youngest child, a girl, to Village Park. Lear was only 5 years old and stayed home with his sick mother. But his little but the little girl, who was frail and sweet, needed a bit of sunlight, the summer's air, much like one day was sweet with the smell of the ocean and crisp. And without a single moment to think or react, a man snatched the little girl from Lear's father's arms and took her away. On a small island such as Welshport, people believed it impossible to hide a child that everyone knew, thanks to her being the niece of the rich and powerful Rebecca Lockwood Lord. But this theory proved wrong. The little girl was never found again. The man, whomever he was, took her to parts unknown, leaving Lear's father Henry and mother Lorena devastated and broken. The marriage suffered. Their finances soon began to dissipate until Rebecca's conservatorship to secure Lear's future. And over the years, Rebecca's name was poisoned in Henry and Lorena's household. Lorena died a broken woman. Henry, too, by his own hand, leaving a teenage Lear to find his way through the war without a father, without a mother, without his baby sister. It wasn't until his early 20s, when he met Baxter Murphy and fell in love with, that he finally felt a twinge of normalcy, only for the relationship to also fall apart like sandcastle crushed by wave. We should get going. We should get going now. Caston has things to do here, Becca said. Lear nodded, still stunned by Rebecca's revelations of his father. She smiled and touched his face with her gloved hand. You look like my baby brother, Harry, every day, my love. Lear winced his face and quickly moved his face, leaving Rebecca's hand in the air. For a split second, her touch still felt a sting in his heart. It was good seeing you, Lear, Caston said as the two left. Lear standing in his office doorway, broken. All of the painful memories of the new information about his father's recklessness with money after the little girl went missing felt like it was all happening again in real time. He felt alone again, felt broken and withering inside. But then a ray of light, Lucas Morrill, bonded back down the hall of Village Hall. I forgot my files, he said with a silly grin. What? Lear asked, his mind slowly coming out of the trance, his painful memories. My files. I left them on your desk. Oh, yes, yes, Lear said, stepping back into the very small office and grabbing the paperwork. Lucas' adorable, warm face, the light brown eyes felt like a hug he needed. Lear passed Lucas' files over, their hands touched. The spark returned. Say, would you like to have a drink now? It's been a bit of a day for me, Lear said. Lucas smiled, a big, happy, warm smile, and he said he would. Lear grabbed his coat and hat from the wooden ornately carved hat rack, and the two left together. So began something new, something good, something real, something loving. That's the read alone. Who kidnapped the little girl? that, he, John is setting up a lot of plots here, in my opinion. I could be wrong about some of this, but I think he's setting up a big massacre here. You got the full moon celebration. Everybody going in the water at Amity worked out very well. Ringing the John's ringing the dinner bell, I think, on his story. It's feeding time, I guess. That's going to be interesting. But in all seriousness, too, who kidnapped the little girl? Who kidnapped his sister? And a little side note: is Cora the kidnapped girl? Is Cora Lear's long lost sister? We'll see. We'll see. That's a question I'm asking. We'll find out. We'll find out. Well, maybe one day. Uh, really, really good. Also, too, a backstory to how the girl was kidnapped, too, right? No matter who she is, no matter who took her. Um, I think John is setting up a backstory there. I could be wrong. I think he is. Book 6, Chapter 8, A Stirring in the Secret Room. It's going to be in the description box. Guys, go check out this story. Really, really good stuff. See ya.